Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, as well as the Kenyan people, on the demise of our icon, a Pan-Africanist and a fighter for social justice. Before I go on, let us please bow for a minute of silence in memory of Prime Minister Odinga and to all those who died during the funeral arrangements. Please bow. We stand here today as Kenyans who are deeply concerned about the trajectory that our country is taking. A trajectory that is a mockery of the ideals that Right Honorable Raila Odinga fought for. A mockery of the 2010 Constitution that we collectively fought to have and swore to protect and implement. Fellow Kenyans, at exactly the same time that the nation was grappling with the news of the demise of Right Honorable Odinga, President Ruto was in State House signing into law not one, but 8 bills, some of which are quite draconian. What a shame that the president can be doing that when the rest of the country is mourning. The bills include the Computer Misuse and the Cyber Crimes Amendment Act, the Privatization Act, the Land Amendment Act, the National Land Commission Amendment Act, the Wildlife Conservation and Management Amendment Act, the National Police Service Amendment Act, the Air Passenger Service Charge Amendment Act, and the Virtual Assets Service Providers Act. We have carefully reviewed these bills approved by the National Assembly and signed into law by Ruto. Our questions, beloved Kenyans, are these. When will the Kenyan state decide to work for its people? How dare the executive and the National Assembly boldly betray the nation and our sovereign will? Today, we'll focus on 2 of these acts and amendments touching on our freedoms and sovereignty. For what is a nation without its sovereign assets and its freedoms? First, the amendments to the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act, in essence, seek to control and crush political dissent and protests in the guise of expanding protections from cyber criminals. It is not lost to us that in June 2024, when Kenyan youth rose up against the finance bill, President Ruto labeled them criminals and terrorists. The addition of Section 6JA to the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act gives the National Computer Cybercrimes Coordination Committee and constitutional powers to issue directives to render a website or an app inaccessible for promoting, amongst other things, illegal activities. Simply put, This unconstitutional committee can order the closure of any website, blog, mobile app, Facebook, X, TikTok, YouTube, or Instagram accounts for allegedly promoting illegal activities. This expansion of the powers glaringly lacks provisions for sufficient judicial oversight. This is a direct affront to the rights to fair administration action and fair hearing enshrined in Articles 47 and 50 of our Constitution. It makes this committee the investigator, prosecutor, and the judge, or final arbiter and overlord on the exercise of our celebrated freedoms of speech and the media as provided for in Articles 33 and 34 of our Constitution. It is also worth noting that there was limited public participation in the passage of the bills, with only 3 written memoranda, with all signatories opposed to the amendment. And surprisingly, a majority of the MPs yet again ignored those views that they received, even from the relevant ministry. And the president followed suit with signing the amendments into law. These amendments are unconstitutional. They are null and void. And this confirms my assertion that President Ruto has lost legitimacy to continue to lead our beloved country. A president who does not have any regard for the constitution under which he governs has no legitimacy to continue governing this country. We shall not allow the freedoms and the rights of free speech, media, fair hearing, and fair administrative action to be buried silently with Right Honorable Raila Odinga. We are aware that efforts are underway to seek immediate legal redress. We fully endorse those efforts and will render our full support. Fellow Kenyans, on several occasions, I have stressed that in its elaborate corruption scheme, this government is out to outrightly rob Kenyans. This is exactly what the repeal of the Privatization Act 2005 and the enactment of the new Privatization Act is doing. The new act introduces a privatization process mainly in the hands of the executive through the Treasury Cabinet Secretary and the Privatization Authority. It grants the CS Treasury power to create a privatization program which may include an unlimited number of public entities earmarked for privatization. Sections 22 and 23 of that act give the Cabinet Secretary unfettered power to require the National Assembly to ratify its privatization program within 60 days, failing which the process in the next 30 days will automatically proceed without parliamentary approval. Once approved, the program is valid for 8 years. Please note that. Once approved, the process is valid for 8 years. The most outrageous part of this process is that the ratification request is only to be accompanied by brief descriptions of the entities undergoing privatization, brief reasons for privatization, and expected benefits, including expected revenue. Crucially, and this is important, information on the valuation of those public entities is not mandatory to be included in the ratification request by the CS. This is meant to entirely circumvent the necessary elaborate parliamentary oversight and neuter public. That's not all. The Act has no provisions built in to ensure parliamentary oversight regarding implementation of a ratified privatization program conducted by the executive. In fact, the Act even exempts publication of the names of the buyers if the privatization is by an initial public offering, IPO. Simply put, if they sell to themselves or their proxies, the Kenyan people will not get to know. Simply put, if they sell even strategic assets to foreigners and put them beyond the country's control, the Kenyan people will not get to know. In a nutshell, the new Privatization Act grants the CS authority to auction national assets. The CS Treasury and the Privatization Authority, as we all know, are handmaids of President Ruto. In essence, therefore, the new Privatization Act grants Ruto powers to do what he pleases with national assets, including even strategic assets. What is also clear is that Ruto's government intends to privatize any public entities it wants unchecked until 2032. In its characteristic, inexplicable, and bottomless greed, Ruto's government plans to exit when it has fully auctioned this country's treasured public entities without meaningful parliamentary oversight and public participation. The Kenya Kwanza regime is currently borrowing over 5 billion Kenya shillings per week. As if that is not enough, it wants in the next 5 years to be on an unchallenged spree of quick fire sale of public property to the crony capitalists and the proxies of those in power. Kenyans must overwhelmingly come out and say no to this egregious grabbing of public resources. The world is scrambling for Africa's minerals, ports, and lands. Why make our nation vulnerable? Who do you serve? Young Kenyans have already died protesting these injustices. You speak of moving Kenya from third world to first world, yet you destroy its very foundations of sovereignty. Prosperity will not come by selling our strategic assets, but by empowering citizens to work freely and participate in nation building. A state that cannibalizes its institutions, betrays its people, and our prosperity is not a state that should continue to have control over the Kenyans. Laws must protect, not endanger, Kenyans' future. We stand here today to defend the meaning of our nation, to guard the inheritance of those who fought for our freedom, and to protect the birthright of those yet to be born. We remind the state that sovereignty belongs to the people of Kenya, as clearly stated in Article 1 of our Constitution. The power lies with us Kenyans, the sovereign people of Kenya, not to Parliament, not to the executive, not to foreign investors. We must all stand up and defend our sovereignty. Thank you very much.